Good evening and welcome to The Square. Tonight is a very interesting discussion. We are going to look at a conversation with Rwandan creatives. Amongst other things, we're going to discuss how Rwandan creatives can leverage digital technologies, especially in this year, 2022. It's almost 2 years as we clock through a pandemic, and looking at synergies and collaborations that Rwandan creatives have, not only in Rwanda, but as well as out of Rwanda and globally. I'm very excited to welcome with us our guests tonight. We have two Rwandan creatives, and I'll start with the lady on my right. I'm happy to welcome with us, and I'm sure many of you know her, Malaika Uwamahoro Kaiteshonga. Malaika, great to have you on The Square.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
We're very happy to have you with us. Also joining us, I'll go to our next guest. We have with us Michael Makembe, who's a creative artist, and we're going to hear more about the work he does. If you could have him on our screens, Michael, it's an honor to have you here on The Square.
Thank you so much.
Great.
So glad to be here.
Great, thank you. My name is Dana PC, host of The Square. As always, I'm joined by the resident panelists on the show. Unfortunately, Bernard Namata couldn't be with us today, but I'm happy to welcome with us Charles Haba. Charlie, always great to have you on the show.
Same here, Dan. How are you?
Good.
Good.
Looking very sharp in your Uzi Collection shirt.
Thank
yes.
you.
Before we do, I don't know if there are any midweek highlights you'd like to share with us, Charles, like we always do.
One particular thing that caught my eye was the excitement around the opening of the Katuna border, on the Rwanda-Uganda border. We did talk about, we didn't anticipate the opening of the border, but we did speak very positively last week about the outcomes of, the anticipated outcomes of the visit by Lieutenant General Muhoozi to Kigali. Now, I for one, I have not been thoroughly excited or unexcited for that matter about whether people can easily cross or not. I think it's the gesture and that matters most. The fact that goods are already crossing. I think it's just almost understandable that the announcement came way ahead of the details. Yeah, and we talked about giving the process a benefit of doubt. There is positivity in around everything. Nobody said they are going to close the borders again. They just said there are certain COVID protocols to be respected that neither of the parties had thought about. The fact that Rwanda is naturally more strict than most of its neighbors when it comes to protocols, even when you travel across the different airports during the height of the pandemic, you could actually see it. So, but it's a step in the right direction that especially goods can move and business will slowly sort of come back to life. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I totally agree with you, Charles. And I'm just hoping some of the things where people are not crossing between borders right now, a couple of things are being ironed out, possibly standard operating procedures for COVID-19 guidelines and that sort of thing. And we'll be seeing actual movement of humans, not only just cargo between the border in the coming days. I would like to just thank the guests once again for coming through. Malaika and Makembe, great to have you on the show. Before we do, I just want us to see some of the work that you do on our screens. We know, Malaika, you're a poet, artist, amongst many other things, creative artist, the same to you, Makembe, especially with music and production. And I have just a few videos of both of you queued up that we'd like our viewers to also see before we kick off the conversation, just to have an understanding of who you are, Malaika and Makembe. And yes, I would like to just quickly ask if on our screens we can cue in just a couple of videos showcasing the work that Malaika does and Makembe. Thank you, and we'll be waiting for that to come on. Thank you.
Do you remember your dreams and how bright they were? Even in the darkest of nights, they were. Afrique, te souviens-tu de tes peurs et des pleurs qui en ont découlé? Africa, do you remember your promise not to commit the same crimes as those who betrayed us, oh Africa? Te souviens-tu de tes prières, les yeux fixés sur le ciel, implorant Dieu de te laisser une autre chance et d'ainsi faire la différence pour ton peuple, Afrique? Africa, remember Remember when you were sworn in and your heart was soaring with joy and pride from deep inside, oh Africa. Te souviens-tu de la gratitude et de l'humilité dont t'as fait preuve lorsque t'es fut donné l'opportunité d'apporter la paix à ton peuple, Africa? Do you remember your drive and determination that you had for all your nations? Because I remember Africa. Je me rappelle. And oh, Africa, I know it's challenging to reach your goals when the rest of the globe has stolen your diamonds, coal, and gold, and then sold them back to you at a higher price. Oh, I cannot tell you the size of this unfairness. So in hopes for change, I'm here to share this message with you, Africa. Afrique, je suis venue te dire que le rêve que tu as rêvé sur tes collines et au fond des vallées sont toujours d'actualité. Africa, I've come to tell you that the pain from the chains were made from our own riches. So don't be afraid to break them for your own freedom. I said there's plenty where that comes from. Oh, Africa, isn't enough enough? It's time to take matters into our own hands. Time that we begin to understand that we can make and live off our own brands. We just have to get up off our knees and
Thank you. So yeah, I think you.
Wow.
I'm sure Charlie's seen
just
my
got
camera
wow.
for the first time.
Yeah.
It's really amazing work that you guys have been doing over the years. And you know, I'll kick off with you, Malaika, just to share your story. You're a seasoned poet, actor, and singer, having graduated from Fordham University in New York City as a recipient of the prestigious presidential scholarship. You have performed on different stages in New York and different stages in Rwanda and around the world, such as the United Nations, the African Union, different theaters in New York, such as Off-Broadway, others across the United States, in Belgium, and international festivals across North America. So Malaika, if you could just kick off by telling us your journey, your personal journey, how it began, and where you are so far.
Right. So for me, I grew up in a family of artists. My mother is an interior designer, my grandma's a tailor, my aunts love performing arts like I do, and my uncles love visual arts. So I feel like that influenced me a lot. And as a kid growing up, I'd always be part of talent shows or after school programs that really would help with my skill set. And so I feel like that was the beginning of it. That was where I got the love for art. And then when we moved back to Rwanda in 2001, I didn't really have a lot of options, but I was going to school at Green Hills, and we had talent shows there, and eventually I got to learn about performing arts. And after high school, I was part of Spoken Word Rwanda, and then went on to university to study arts. So that's been my training and my background, and I'm so happy that I was able to experience that. Yeah.
And when did you begin this journey? I know it's a lot to ask. You can't chart out almost a 10-year journey, but when did you begin it, and what right now is your current focus of area of work?
I would say that professionally, I began acting in 2005 with Mashirika. And then that kind of, like even though I was in school, I would still make a living off of it and, make extra money from it. So that's then when I realized that I could actually grow into this career. And right now, because of the pandemic, I have been focusing more on my art, and which has been a really amazing journey for me to discover what I can actually do with my own poetry and how I can portray it and stuff. It's been cool.
Great. Charles, I'll definitely come back to you later on if you have something to add, but I'd like to go to our other creative artist with us in the room, Mr. Makembe, Michael Makembe. I'll be referring to you as Makembe on the show. And you refer to yourself as a creative artist and entrepreneur, Makembe. You've been credited with the creation of the new traditional modern Rwandan music, like we saw earlier on. And you play, you're said to be the only Ikembe or Kalimba player in Rwanda. I don't know how accurate that is, but you'll tell us. And you've had performances over the years at different summits, such as the African Union Summit, Youth Connect Summit. You've performed at Kwitizina and various festivals, also such as the Iwachu Music Festival. You also produce music for very significant events, such as the Basketball Africa League, Kwibuka 27, as well as various adverts for Arsenal and Visit Rwanda campaigns. And you're also an Art Rwanda Ubuhanzi finalist. Your work has led you to different types of music, fusing Afropop, Gakondo, as well as different fusions, hip-hop and that sort of thing, not only for local artists but international artists. A lot to your portfolio, Makembe. If you could also, just like Angel did, start off by telling us how your journey began and where you are thus far in your career right now.
Thank you so much. I started as one-man band, playing different instruments. So I have a background of music with my family. My brother is a musician too. All my brothers, we are 4 in a family, but all the family, one is a rapper, one is a writer, one is an entrepreneur in music. So I have that background of music too, everywhere, in every creative industry. So I started as guitarist, playing guitar. Then later on, professionally, I joined Nyundo Music School 2017. Then that's the beginning of my music career. Then they introduced to me music production, every industry of music, everything in music industry. Then later on, I focused on the music production and composition, but I had a feeling that I have a calling of doing my traditional music. Though I don't have a background of music, traditional music of Rwanda. I grew up in Kampala, studying there, but when I came back, joined the Nyundo Music School, I had chance of learning, knowledge of everything in music, Then I decided I should come to my calling of bringing a traditional and the modern music. So that's what I do, and that's the calling. I could say it's the beginning of the music, and now that's where I am.
Michael, Makembe, sorry, if you could share with us, when exactly did your journey start? Angel Malaika, told us that she began in 2005?
Yeah.
2005, professionally. Yes. When did you begin? You just said you were a graduate of the Nyundo School of Music. You just was recently studying in Kampala. So when did your journey begin?
My journey I started music professionally when I joined Nyundo Music School. That's when I've been playing around with the instrument, playing some concert. But 2015, that's when I said, now I'm going to do music as a business, as a career. Then after finishing the high school, I've been moving around, performing, doing research about sounds of Rwanda, about the traditional. And then 2019, I started doing now music production professionally.
And are you, just very quickly before I move on to Charles, are you the only sort of artist, creative artist that really mixes these Rwandan traditional sounds, popularly known as Gakondo, with your Afrofusion, hip-hop fusions? Are other artists doing it? Are you a leading artist doing it? What can you tell us more about that?
Actually, it's not only me doing it. There's a lot of people having the same calling, and though it's me who's putting much effort to it, moving around the country, going to record a traditional, bring the sounds of Rwanda, the old analog sound into modern. But I think I'm among the people who's doing it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Makembe. Charles, anything you'd like to ask our guests?
First of all, I've known Malaika for a while and her family, so it's I shower her with praises on social media as well. And but there's two things. One that I've picked out is the importance of family and the fact that being the backbone of how we are born, how we are brought up. If you hear Makembe's story or Malaika's stories, it's about really the importance of how you've been born, how you've been brought up, and that basis that even if you wanted to be a singer, for example, and they don't support you at home, you either turn out to be rebellious or it may not come out extremely well, but it's quite helpful when there's that element of family support. The second thing is being creative, true to the sense of the word. And whoever knew that, I think the lady's name is Sophia, the one who does Inanga.
Yes.
Yeah, whoever thought that you can do that Inanga with very modern poetry in English and French. You almost feel that it doesn't rhyme. So that's extremely creative, and it just comes in to say that you have to think a little bit out of the box. If you go by the usual norms, you may not really get it. And the same applies to Makembe and his music. Merging traditional with modern. And I think about a year or two ago we did host Mani Marte here on another round when we were talking about creatives again, and I think he sings a brand of music called Afrofusion, if I'm not mistaken, and it just tells you that if you sit back in your laurels and try to do what everyone else is doing, I don't think you deserve to be called a creative. Yes,
yeah. Story, true. I want to go on to the question of like I said earlier on, we're clocking 2 years in March. Where it becomes, 2 years of a pandemic. I don't know how many of us can say to our children that we lived through a pandemic.
And counting. 2 years and counting.
2 years and counting, who knows, right? And my next question is really to do with leveraging digital platforms, because one of the things we noticed is through this pandemic, a lot of people have had to rebrand, rethink, regroup, and look at different avenues of putting their music out there to different audiences, using different methods. And, when this pandemic came, the creative industries and creatives were one of the hardest hits. You're staying at home, there are no audiences, people don't gather. So, Malaika, I'll kick off with you. How have you learned in the last 2 years? Has it enabled you to be more present on digital platforms? What are your plans going forward? Yeah, over to you.
Yeah, for me, I think it was a shock, I think, for everybody. But for me, it was like, even watching this video, I see that I had an audience, and a huge audience, and I kind of missed that. But what the pandemic pushed us to do is to be more creative and to really find creative ways to still be able to reach your audience. And so we started making, me and my partner, also husband, who's a cinematographer, we started making videos at home. And we started learning, what can we do with what we have, and how can we maximize on this to really make an impact. So one of the, some of the first few videos weren't really elaborate, because you're just starting out, you're just trying to figure it out, how can I use the oven, or how can I use whatever we have at home to make it work. And then it moves from that to okay, this was good, but now I want to really try and evoke feeling through the screen. So, you know, you start to look at different fabrics, you start to explore different sounds, you start to really see how far can I push you know, all of the elements that I have around me to make the impact that I used to be able to make in front of audiences. So for me, as much as it was challenging, I feel like I did learn a lot, and it pushed me to be more creative. And it also pushed me to do my own work, because for so long I've been doing or participating with other people's projects and other people's work. But for me to be able to sit down and finally look at my projects, you know, all the poems that I did at Spoken Word Rwanda, yes, which were amazing, but you know, it's for that moment, then it's gone. So what we learned is that, okay, we can take these poems and make beautiful visuals, and they can be evergreen, you know, and I can really stand out as an artist, not only who contributes to other people's work, but as an artist on my own. And that's been really interesting.
So there's a silver lining.
There is a silver lining.
There is a silver lining.
Yes.
This pandemic has brought for some creatives. Michael Makembe, over to you. You know, a lot of your work is in studio, producing different sounds, fusing different genres of music, and of course performing for large audiences. We were lucky to have Iwachu Festival in 2020, and I saw you performing. How has the pandemic affected your work, and how have you leveraged digital platforms to make your work carry across to audiences in spite of the COVID-19 pandemic?
Thank you so much. Actually, on my side, the pandemic actually pushed me a lot on coming back to digital, you know, coming to the life of digital a lot. So as a producer, I used to get people coming to the studio. I used to move around, go record people on the set. But then I realized that, you know, internet is the new visa. You can go around, you know, and do everything on internet. Actually, I've been also producing with Malaika things online. So it kind of actually gave me another skills, another knowledge, you know. I've been doing research. How could I record someone live, you know, Skype, someone outside. I'm here in Rwanda. So I think this gave me another knowledge, another level of professionalism to digital, also to my career. And then also started distributing my music online, which I never used to do before. Like I learned, I should now make a living through digital platform, everything I do in my music career. So I was like, it's time to do it now. Mm-hmm. So to me, it's a positive thing to me.
Interesting. And are you on some platforms like Spotify?
Yes, I
Apple?
am.
Okay, so you actually use those platforms.
Yes.
I know, like when the pandemic began, a lot of artists have resorted to actively putting on it's kind of like they were pushed to start putting their music on these platforms due to you know, the pandemic, and which is good. Charles, do you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I mean, just to add on to what Makembe said, and I hope I get the pronunciation right, because I'm going to start liking his music. I better pronounce his name right. I think that's where COVID has been a huge blessing in disguise. It's that if you've been surviving off your music, you feed your family, you pay your school fees, your kids, food and what have you, off your music or whatever line of art you're in, and all of a sudden you don't have that opportunity, are you going to fold your arms and go and queue at Murenje for Kaunga like anyone else? No, you can't afford to do that. So then it's really pushed them a lot. I probably challenge that I think they all have to imagine that in the previous era of pre-COVID, the limitations of your audience were predominantly those whom you're performing towards. And to Malaika's point, that if she hadn't watched this video for the nth time, she wouldn't have realized that she actually had a big audience. But post-COVID, she actually has an audience that is 10, 15 times, 20 times bigger than the AU delegates that she performed to. So I think there is a huge opportunity. Whether that is going to automatically interpret into bigger bucks, I'm not very sure. I hope it can, because that's really the bigger thing. I can find fraudulent ways of picking her art off the internet, but to attend his show, to attend Makembe's show, and I want a VIP seat, I'll pay 100,000 francs. You know, so I think that's a bit of the catch that there is, and I think it does not only apply to them. It applies to, I had Makembe say, as a producer as well. It applies to everybody along the value chain, the promoters, but even as the consumers of the art, to appreciate that. They need us as much as we need them, and therefore if his piece is going to be, or her piece is going to be online, and if I can go to Amazon and buy a book and listen to it for tens of bucks, I may as well buy his music online and pay that amount of money.
I want to go to another part of the conversation, especially to our viewers watching, especially parents who have children who are veering off into this field, you know, the creative industries, the creative arts. It's not easy. I think in Rwanda, even in 2022, when we have young people telling their elders or their guardians or their caretakers or their parents, this is a career that I want to pursue, most of the time they're met with some sort of, you know, pushback. It's very challenging, it's very risky, the returns are never quite guaranteed, that sort of thing. And Malaika and Makembe, you know, and I'll kick off with you, Malaika. What sort of advice do you give to young people listening, inspired by you, who are probably set on going in the same career path, but are facing a bit of adversity and lack of support, and also just to give them a sort of real deal picture of what's out there? What advice would you share?
Well, I think some of the things that have helped me is to be versatile. So in maybe days where I don't have poetry gigs, I have music gigs, and days where I don't have music gigs, I have acting gigs, and days where I don't have acting gigs, I have modeling gigs. So finding a way to be versatile in the arts has really, really helped me to survive, but also learning that life in general is not all about money, and it's not all, and it really is, being an artist is a fulfilling life. It's a life where you can be okay with yourself every day because you know that you're following your dreams. You can look in the mirror and be like, yeah, I'm being real today because I am following my dreams. And it's not an easy path, but it definitely is worth it. And yeah, I would highly recommend. 10 out of 10.
Highly recommend. Makembe, what advice would you give?
The advice I could give to creative artists outside there is like, you know, this is a calling. You know, you have to do it anytime, you have to do it willingly, you have to do it, put you there, you know, give it time, you know, like this industry of music, there is always challenges, you know, there's always, even sometimes you may come to me as a producer, you know, we don't really communicate, so sometimes art is wide, and you have to get where you fit in and be comfortable. So to me, like creative artists who are outside there, follow your calling and be you. Actually, this is something has helped me a lot, being me, you know, doing me, not trying to copy someone else, and follow what you think is right you're doing. Like on my side as a musician, as a producer, as a singer, I feel like I have something I should work on, which I call a calling. So I follow it, I give it energy, I give it positive, you know, mood. So it's, the idea is like follow your heart, you know.
I think from what I'm picking from both of you is versatility is a must. You need to be able to be a producer, a musician, you know, for you, for instance, Angel, you're talking about being a model, being an actress, so it's not sticking to one craft as a creative, but trying to hone as many skills as you need, because you need to be as versatile as possible. It's a very also, what's the word? Fluctuating world. You know, things are in a constant state of flux in the creative industry. Charles, is there something you wanted to add?
This particular part touches me because I'm also a little bit guilty.
Of being one of those parents?
Yeah. Two of my daughters, one is an amazing writer.
Yes.
And she's also a good storyteller. What am I doing about it apart from bragging about it on the square?
Shout out.
It's extremely embarrassing. The second of them is an extremely gifted acrobat. She's only 8. But apart from posting her on my WhatsApp status, I have not taken, been very aggressive to look at where she can flourish or nourish that talent. But that's me. Then you take it a notch higher to the schools, and you ask yourself, how many of today when you look at the competitions that go around in schools, it's about who performed very well, who is a better football, which is a better football school, which ones beat the others at cricket. For some years now, we've had debate challenges. And then you ask yourself, like for the singers, that you have singing competitions, like my school choir is better than your school choir, something like that, or all the others that acting, why not? Drama clubs and to a level of competition, not just ticking the boxes that you have extracurricular activities and you spend 20 minutes in a week just in different attire, and that's about it, and probably that will be when it's time to do the Christmas carols at the end of the year, and that's about it. So I will drift away and disagree a little bit with Malaika about the paying part, because we have seen that over time, even especially post-COVID, that you can actually earn quite a little bit. We'll give a most extreme example, a young PhD holder who is age mates with an amazing singer. The singer is most likely, the 30-year-old singer is most likely going to become a millionaire in dollars faster than the PhD holder. So, but the point I'm really raising is that our education system needs to realize the versatility that you're talking about, Diana, to come out and start making sure that they are going to be proud of not only producing geeks and brainees, but also people who are very good at these different creative things. The last point I want to raise around that is old school parents, and I have a particular friend who's watching the show right now. He posted on our parents group at the school that he would never stand his son with dreadlocks. So, and he actually went ahead to use very strong words, said, "over my dead body." So I said, okay, fine, let's first deal with how you'll depart from this earth in a different conversation. But do you realize it will get to a point that it will not be your decision? Exactly. That's number one. Number two is that the hair on the young man's head is not representative of what is in his brain. Yes, so don't stifle the brain activity by what's on top of it.
True.
Yeah, so the whole thing of old school parents and old school schools is one of the areas that are going to stifle the growth of the creative industry.
Charles, you raise a good point, and I want to throw it back to our audience, our guests. But in the meantime, to our audience, I'd like to say, please keep the conversation going using #TheSquareRW on our Twitter feeds. We'd like to hear what you think, especially of the insights and the personal journeys of our guests and the resident panelists. But you raise a good point, Charles, and that is to do with the environment. A conducive environment that can enable the growth of our creative artists. And I know in Rwanda it's extremely limited. That's why schools like the Nyundo School of Music are so welcome. The programs, the initiative by the founder or the person who runs the school, and it's not like you see many music and creative arts academies like the Nyundo School of Music. Countrywide festivals such as Art Rwanda Buhanzi. Before it, there were no sort of festivals that were going around to seek creative artists. And I want to exclude those such as Guma Guma, because those were specifically looking for potential artists, and it was very corporate. But beside Art Rwanda Buhanzi and Nyundo School of Music, our curricula is very limited. Like you said, it really stifles the growth of our creatives. And, there's not much investment made in schools or academies or, theaters, a national theater. I know personally something I've been moaning about for the longest time ever. It's good that we have spaces that are coming up, but theaters dedicated to the creative arts, not the French Cultural Center. I'm not talking about that. So these are some of the things I feel like we can do better as a country. And I want to ask in Malaika, sorry, I need to get it straight. I need to ask Malaika and Makembe their thoughts on this. In terms of support for your art, for your craft, what more support would you expect from different stakeholders in the country?
I really want to talk about space, because space is really, really important. I feel like spaces like Spoken Word Rwanda were really important for me because they allowed us to be free. Now, what's interesting is that I actually went to school for theater, and so you'd think that and I learned a lot. I learned a lot of technicalities. I was exposed to a lot of different arts. But another thing that was really eye-opening for me is that they were teaching art, but they weren't teaching maybe my art, the kind of art that I was born to do or that I should be doing for me. It was kind of like a general art that, if you're lucky, you'll pick things, you know what I'm saying? So another thing is even though there are these institutions that provide a certain education, I think you still have to very much have a vision for yourself. But when we have creative spaces that allow people to just be free, just come and make art, come and collaborate, I think collaborations is also one of the other things that has been really remarkable in my journey. I've collaborated with Michael Makembe, who is here, but also people to know that there's different ways of collaboration. You can be a producer, you can sponsor a project, you can, if you have a talent, you can come and, see different ways how you can collaborate to make an art piece. So if there's anybody who'd like that opportunity, I'm here. You have my information.
Yes.
Hit me up.
Makembe, same question to you. You went to the Nyundo School of Music. I know there's also another wing of the school that's not specific to music, but other creative arts. What sort of support would you like from various stakeholders in Rwanda, be it government, be it private sector, be it personal philanthropists who have some funding they can give? What sort of support, in your experience, would you like to see going to people like you?
Thank you. As a creative artist, also according to my journey, my background, we really need creative places that really create, Rwandan artists, with that identity of Rwanda. Though we could look for creative places, but we also need to create people that really represent Rwanda in terms of music, in terms, if there's a poet, you can tell, the touch, the signature is from Rwanda. So we really need creative places that really create, local people, local talent with that identity and give them space, because sometimes we may have schools, it's good we have school of music, but we need now, there are, as a producer, also as an archivist who move around the country looking for sounds, I feel like I've seen that there's very many talents around the country, local people with different, with gold talents, with different things that they are born with, but they don't really have somewhere they share it. Us personally, I've been moving around recording sounds of Rwanda songs. I met old people, I met young people with different talents. Some of them, when I go record, local people, I see talents I've never seen, but who have never been anywhere. So who have even no information about where he or she could go share the skills from. So we really need places that really promote this also, local people. Not only like a school, there are people with information will go there, but we lack also this. We need people to go look for these talents, as to my music industry of traditional. I usually see talents that really are there, and there's nobody supporting them, And I also started doing the same thing, bring them to digital. But I think we need now space. You know, those people, if you're looking for someone who is playing Amayuji, who's sing Amahamba, you know exactly where to find. But for now, you only find places you find creative artists like those in weddings. So there's no anywhere we could find that richness, mostly our traditional.
I really like the way you put it, Makembe. And just to clarify, I know what you mean, but for the benefit of our viewers, what you said, you're an archivist. So what do you mean when you go around the country recording sounds? So you record, you record the sound of cows, you record the sound of people dancing. What do you record when you go around the country? And then what do you do with those sounds?
Actually, I have a project called Sounds of Rwanda. And then this project, I started it as a calling, as a feeling to do something. Because as a producer, I started doing beats before. Then I realized I need to look for a signature of me and the music that I produce for artists. Then I say I should look for the identity for my culture. But then if I go to culture, I need full information. I need somewhere I go to the source, So the source, as a musician, I never had a source. Then I had to create a source. The Sounds of Rwanda, it's a project that I go around the country looking for musicians, local people with different, like I've gone to Ngombo, I've gone to Bigogwe, I go record Ichinyemela as a style of Rwanda. Then I put information of Ichinyemela, people singing the style. I give full information digitally. Then that's the Sounds of Rwanda.
That's fantastic. And I wanted to ask him that, Charles, because it sounds out of the ordinary. But when you go to museums of sound, globally, internationally, you hear sounds of, let's say, for instance, the Aborigines 100 years back, and it's been archived and it's been recorded. And to see Makembe doing that in Rwanda, it's not a mean feat, number one, and it's unprecedented. I mean, literally gathering different sounds and connecting it with our culture. And, so it's great to see you young people doing that and marrying culture, marrying available technologies that are here. And you're thinking of 100 years, keeping these sounds and, somewhere that will really preserve part of our culture and also promote you, propel you as a creative artist. Really great stuff. Angel, I don't know if there's something you want to add before we go to the next part of our conversation.
Well, I just wanted to say another thing that would really support us is sharing our work. We make this art, but we put it on our social platforms, but we still need our Rwandan people to push us because no matter if we make it and we put it out there and nobody's sharing it, then it's still not accessible. And yet this is the way that we have to move forward now. So I would just encourage you guys to share our work. Thank you.
True. Charles?
Yeah, I think I want to say every challenge presents an opportunity, and I'll talk about the urban setting. There's a small music school around the corner here in Kachiru called Rwanda Rocks. That's where one of my daughters goes. When I started taking her there, I wasn't spoiled for choice in terms of an urban setting where you can drop her 2-3 hours, pick her, get back to she goes home for lunch. And I asked around, and there wasn't too many options. When you even ask about other opportunities of even dancing, Amarava, for instance, or in Hore, for that matter, you're not spoiled for choice, especially in urban settings and in our neighborhoods and what have you. And this is where I want to implore the likes of Makembe and Malaika about the opportunity around an already established creative to be able to look at the entrepreneurship journey and say, yes, my talent is in singing and performing and what have you, but can I make an extra buck in and teaching people how to do these things, and sort of I think there's a huge opportunity in that space. Yeah.
We're coming to the last part of the conversation, and just very quickly, I want us to talk about the future. And this is, part of the title actually for tonight is a conversation with creatives, but other than digital platforms, also collaborative synergies, especially in 2022. I mean, I would think that during this pandemic, we've learned that it's important to collaborate across borders. We are seeing when you use digital platforms, we can cross borders, basically.
Yes.
You're not limited to performances only in Rwanda. And my question to you, Malaika, I'll kick off with you. If you could share with us, this year, what does it hold for you when it comes to collaborative synergies and partnerships with other artists in Rwanda and abroad?
Well, actually a lot. I do have a couple of art pieces coming out, and I am collaborating with many local artists here in Rwanda, as well as artists from abroad, and we're doing a lot of things digitally, and we're also recording a lot of things together, with cameras and going around our neighborhoods and shooting really cool material. So there's a lot happening, and stay tuned, watch my YouTube, and you will see everything. For now, you can go watch Black Skin and How Many Times. These are my latest pieces.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Malaika. Makembe, same question to you. What do you have in store this year, especially creative collaborations with other artists in Rwanda and abroad?
I am collaborating a lot with local people, because as I told you, Sons of Rwanda, what I do, I meet those people from villages who sing traditional around the country. So I have a lot in the store, in the studio, and I'm bringing those local people, the traditional, featuring with other artists, my generation, with this popular one, hip hop. So I have a lot that I'm fusing a lot of traditional and modern.
Thank you. Not Afro, but fusion of genres of music for you, Makembe. You're also partnering with others, audiovisual content in Rwanda and abroad. I'd like us to just read a couple of tweets. We don't have time, so I'll read those that we have time for. And the first tweet, if you could have that on our screens, is from Nshuti, who says that we need creative spaces that help in creating artists with Rwandan identities. Well said, Michael Makembe. Cannot really agree more. Ministry of Youth Culture, Rwanda, please help us on this. So we've come to the end of the show. I just want to give a few minutes for closing remarks, and I'll start with you, Charles, before we go to our guests.
I have really two things to talk about. One is the last point around collabos. I think there's a bigger opportunity than thinking about Makembe doing a collabo with Fally Ipupa. I think there's a bigger opportunity in looking out of your comfort zone and, say, for argument's sake, to talk about a space in which I participate, which is the real estate space. I don't see why, when an architect is going to do a video promoting their housing project or their commercial project, the background tracks should not be some fusion of Makembe and his stuff. I mean, that would be so cool, so as authentic. Opposed to, it'd be so authentic as opposed to the usual Wolfgang Mozart sounds that we are used to. I think that's one thing. And I think the other thing as well, and I just picked this from the beginning of the show when Malaika's poem at the African Union was coming up. I think there's also a huge opportunity to collaborate now with politicians. Why not? With people who are doing different campaigns on protecting the girl child and things like that. And then you say, okay, fine, can we tell our story through all these other different forums, and it stops being monotonous that if there's going to be a campaign on protection of the girl child or protected sex in schools and so on and so forth, it's going to be a lot more than the usual billboards and radio programs and what have you, and we use more of our creatives. I think thinking out of the box will spread the message more efficiently. Yes,
absolutely. Using our creatives, and you know, people before the pandemic started, when you'd go around around provinces and districts with campaigns, we used theater as a form of communication. So there's no difference using
We're not
that.
reinventing the wheel, yes.
Yes, but just maybe on digital platforms, because of the COVID-19 restrictions. Malaika, closing remarks before I go to Makembe.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much for having me, and I really look forward to all the support that we'll be getting from you and all the collaborations that we'll be doing in the future. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Malaika. Makembe, over to you, closing remarks.
Thank you so much. Keep supporting Rwandan music.
Thank you. You guys are very humble. So do you have platforms where people can find your work? What message do you want to leave our viewers with, to support your work? Malaika?
Yeah, well, you can follow me on YouTube, Malaika Uwa Mahoro. On Instagram, it's Uwa_Mahoro. And on Twitter, it's Malaika Uwa Mahoro. So you can find me there. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you guys.
Thank you. Makembe, do you want to share some of your digital platforms?
All my digital platform, it's Michael Makembe.
Okay. All right, thank you. So I'd like to thank you so much for coming through. Malaika, I'd like to thank you so much for coming through. I'd like to thank you, Makembe, if you could have him on our screens.
Thank you.
For coming through. It's been an honor. Thank you so much. Charlie, always a pleasure hosting The Square with you. To our viewers, I hope you've been listening, tuning in, and getting some insights from our artists, their personal journeys. To artists who are out there, keep on going despite the COVID-19 pandemic. We have technologies that can make the work of creative artists limitless in terms of audiences. So definitely be sure to utilize that. To our support system in terms of support to The Square, Uzi Collections and Bourbon Coffee, thank you very much for supporting us. And to our viewers, thank you for tuning in. Have a good night. See you again next week.